Okay, I have to tell you guys about this magical natural spring in Slovenia. Stick with me for a sec. This spring is famous for having the highest natural magnesium concentration in the world because the water flows through ancient layers of stone, naturally enriching it with magnesium. It's so cool. Now, if you're like me and currently magnesium obsessed, this is for you. Most of us are low on magnesium because our American soil is depleted and our diets aren't cutting it, and we notice it in our energy levels. Enter Vital Spring. These are travel friendly individual packets of premium magnesium and electrolytes sourced from Europe and inspired by that very spring in Europe. And many of you travel lovers know that we feel way better when we're eating and getting our nutrients in Europe. What makes Vital Spring different is how clean and effective it is. No added sugar, no weird ingredients, just exactly what your body needs in the most bioavailable form, meaning your body knows exactly what to do with it. And the flavor is super mild, just a hint of lemon rind sourced from Italy. As someone who drinks black coffee and dry white wine, I love that it's not overly sweet or fruity. I mix mine with sparkling lemon water, and I swear I can taste the minerals absorbing into my body. Even my husband's on board now. We both notice a difference about halfway through drinking it and feel amazing when we're finished. After workouts, walks in my weighted vest, or especially when traveling, this is my new must have. I'm definitely packing it for our Grand Canyon hike this summer. Vital Spring was so kind to offer Trip Tales listeners the biggest discount they've ever given. 20% off your order with code Kelsey20. So go to vital-spring.com. That's vital-spring. Use code Kelsey20 at checkout and get your magnesium and electrolytes in check. Again, that's vital-spring.com and use code Kelsey20. You're gonna feel amazing. Welcome to the Trip Tales podcast with me, Kelsey Graves. Let's jump into a new episode exploring a vacation destination that you'll want all the details about. Hey everyone, welcome back to Trip Tales, the podcast where real people share their real trip stories to give you destination inspiration and practical planning tips. Before we jump into today's trip to St. John, I want to thank my most recent buymeacoffee.com supporter, Ashley H. Ashley bought me a coffee and wrote, "Thanks for all the Disney cruise details, tips, and tricks. I feel much more relaxed now going on our upcoming trip." Thank you so much, Ashley. You know I did a happy dance when that came through. There are now 4 different Disney cruise episodes on Trip Tales, so you can scroll back through and find the one for you, and another one hopefully coming soon about one of the newer ships, so stay tuned. My buymeacoffee.com link is always in the show notes, or if you have a good memory, it's just buymeacoffee.com/Kelsey Graves. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Today, I am joined by my friend Christy, who has been to St. John several times and is going to share everything we need to know about planning a trip to this U.S. Virgin Island. So welcome, Christy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I start every episode with a rapid fire get to know you. So tell everyone where you live, what you do, and about your family.
I live in Franklin, Tennessee, not far from Kelsey. I formerly was a teacher before we moved here about 3 years ago, but I shuttle my kids around everywhere right now, and I tutor in the area of literacy a little bit, but mostly mom. My husband is Jordan, and he works in the area of home building. And then I have 2 children. I have an almost 13-year-old girl and a 10-year-old boy.
Yes. And our 13-year-old girls and our 10-year-old boys go to school together. So I twisted Christy's arm. I found out that she had been to St. John and I was like, tap, tap, excuse me. A lot of people are asking about this. So will you please come on? But yeah, my daughter recently turned 13 as well. That's a big one. It is just like, whoa, teenager. And it's been fun. I'm loving my big kids. I'm having so much fun with them. I love traveling with them. But 13's like, I feel like my husband and I have been having a lot of, okay, like the parenting thing changes a little bit. Like it's a little bit switches more from like where you're just feeding and clothing to like consulting a little bit and like, okay, well, what do you think about that? It's just a whole new world.
Yeah, everything is a negotiation right now.
Yes.
But it is easier traveling with them, I would say. I noticed that a lot when I was traveling to St. John, for example, with my large family, and both of my sisters still have young children, as young as 5 years old. And it's different for them than what I'm experiencing, but we make it work.
Yes, I know. I am loving traveling with big kids just because you can do so much more and they can pack themselves and they're actually kind of interested in what you're doing during the day. So it is fun traveling with the big kids. So you've been to St. John a handful of times and you originally discovered it through your parents' love of St. John. So tell people how your parents fell in love with the island.
So, when we were younger kids, my parents had timeshare in Orlando. So, we were Disney people. And
Okay.
I think once we sort of exhausted that, they still, I mean, we love a palm tree. And so they wanted to kind of expand the horizons a little bit. And we visited St. Thomas one year. I was a teenager for sure, maybe 17 or something like that. And we took a ferry trip over to St. John just for one day to visit the Westin. And they left my siblings and I at the pool for many hours, many hours. It felt like forever. But at the end of that day, they had become owners there of a villa that we just thought was the very coolest thing in the whole world. I remember when we first toured it and knowing that the next time we came back, that was where we were going to stay was really exciting.
Oh my gosh, funny. I have a question. Were you down in St. Thomas on their other timeshare? Like,
No,
okay.
I'm trying to remember. I don't think that was a timeshare.
Okay. I didn't know
It
if
might
that was
have,
like the Orlando thing. They translated to St. Thomas and they were
no,
like,
I,
never
I
mind, we're
think
going to
they
skip.
might have had some points. They're
Yeah.
really smart with timeshare and points and how they use it. And they may have had some points that helped us stay at the resort we stayed on St. Thomas. But no, once we found St. John, we never stayed on St. Thomas again. Not to say there's anything wrong with St. Thomas, but St. John is a little bit different vibe and it suits us better.
Okay. Awesome. I have to ask the second question as well. I know that you are a big reader because we've talked about books and stuff in the past. So I have to ask, have you read, I used to say Elin Hildebrand, but I just learned it's actually Ellen Hildebrand. Do you
Yeah.
read her books?
I read one of them. I read
Okay.
one because my family started passing it around.
Yeah, so she has a bunch of Nantucket books, and then she has St. John. It's a trilogy called Winter in Paradise. I like can't stop talking about it because I just
I
finished the
think that
third
I
one.
may have read the first one in that
Yeah,
trilogy.
that's probably the best one. Maybe I liked the second one the best actually, and the third one's just trying to like close all the storylines. But it
Uh-huh.
is so fun because she uses all the real locations and she talks about the Westin all the time and the timeshares. And one of the characters actually works in the timeshare office. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so
Really?
crazy that you guys have a timeshare in the Westin. And that's like clearly a big part of her books. So if you get
Yeah.
bored anytime, you could pick that trilogy back up. So normally you guys go in January. So is this typically coupled with a Christmas break or is it over like MLK Junior Day?
What they own in St. John is the first full week of January.
Okay.
That's their week. And then since then, they have actually added on some floating weeks. And that's how we're able to get creative where we go as a large family. But originally, it was just the 3 bedroom villa. That's one of the options where you can stay at the Westin. So it's a 3 bedroom pool villa, which feels like a small apartment. It does have an upstairs and downstairs and 2 bedrooms that feel like master or primary bedrooms, and then another bedroom as well. And it has its own pool at the villa. It's called a
Wow.
pool villa, so it has a small pool in an enclosed area. We you can like grill out there, and there's a hot tub in the enclosed area too, which has been really fun to come back at the end of like a beach day, and the kids all kind of we can get dinner ready in the kitchen and be looking out where they're jumping in and
Yeah, I wasn't picturing that at all. Does it feel like and look like a big hotel or is it like individual villas?
it's not a tall high-rise hotel. There are several different buildings that have villas together.
Okay.
2 levels would be the highest.
Okay.
There might
And
be three,
then
there might be some buildings that have 3 levels.
is there also a main pool or does everyone just have their individuals if they have one connected to their villa? Hey, Trip Tales listeners, I'll keep this short. If you're loving the podcast, leaving a review or buying me a coffee is the quickest way to show your support, and it will ensure that these amazing trip stories keep coming. Leave a review wherever you are listening to this podcast, or buy me a coffee at the link in the show notes, and I'll literally do a happy dance when it comes through. Okay, back to the show.
There's also a large main pool.
Okay, fun.
And that is close to the beach.
Nice. And then, sorry, I'm like jumping way ahead. Normally we talk about like how you got there, but I'm just so interested in this. And then do you guys have a view, like a pretty view from the timeshare?
So different room setups have a different view. The pool villa is in the back part of the resort. And then remember I said that my parents kind of added on additional floating weeks. Those weeks are located closer to the beach. And so the one I just stayed in recently, we could look right out on the beach. We were able to look out in the morning and pick our beach chair and send the kids down to put towels on them without, while drinking our coffee. So it was really convenient. One of my favorite things about it is that it has a lot of amenities, but it is not so big that it's overwhelming. You can walk from one point end of it all the way to the other, and they have golf carts. And now that our kids are getting older, it feels small and safe enough that they can be off on their own.
This is all amazing. Okay. Yeah, we're going to get into the resort. Let's talk about getting there real quick because it takes a little bit of planning to get all the way to St. John, I've learned, and there's a couple of different options. So why don't you share about some of the ways that you guys have made your way from Franklin, Tennessee, all the way to St. John?
We haven't been able to find a nonstop flight from here to St. Thomas, but we have flown through Miami or Charlotte or even San Juan. So we've been able to just have, one layover, and then we fly into St. Thomas. We usually fly American Airlines, but I don't think that's the only option. And then once you get to St. Thomas, there are a couple of different ferry options. You can book. If you're staying at the Westin, you can book a ferry directly through the Westin. It's the most pricey option, but it's like air conditioned, it's fancier. When we traveled there with an infant and we got there later in the evening because we had delays, my parents made sure that we had that option because it takes us directly to the Westin and it's the most seamless.
Nice.
Most of the time, however, we choose one of the other options. Crown Bay Ferry is great because it's very close to the airport. So it's a short taxi ride from the airport and then about a 30-ish minute ferry ride. Beautiful ferry ride. I mean, imagine like the sun is setting. We were watching a bird kind of flying along, seeming to follow us there. You're very excited. Open air, you're on the top, you're looking out. It's a very exciting moment because you've arrived.
Yes.
So it drops you off in Cruz Bay, kind of downtown, which we love. We always go right from there to one of our favorite happy hour spots,
which is what?
High Tide.
Okay.
And I'll tell you about all those spots.
Yeah.
And then the other ferry option is a little bit less expensive, but it's a longer ride, longer taxi ride from the airport, and then a shorter ferry ride over to also downtown in St. John.
Okay. So lots of choices. When you land at the airport and you taxi over to one of these ferries, whichever one you've chosen, are you just leaving the airport and hailing a taxi, or are you setting that up in advance through like a transportation company?
You could do either. I recommend setting it up in advance. There's a Facebook group called St. John Travel Life that we've joined, and you can find different drivers recommended there. We have drivers that we've used in the past that my parents have used. So we know like the name, Mahmood is his name, and he comes and he picks us up, and we know, I don't know, I guess we know it feels reliable because, my parents have used them. So he took us to the ferry.
Yeah, definitely. I love those Facebook groups now for any sort of trip I'm planning. I'll join one for like a year while I'm planning something, and then sometimes I leave them, but they're the best for figuring out what you need to do on your trip.
Yeah. And you can buy your ferry tickets ahead of time as well, but sometimes you want to be careful about which ferry you want to use if your flight gets delayed. Some of the ferries go later in the evening and some of them have a cutoff time.
Got it. And then with all your luggage, I mean, I know you're probably trying to pack light because it's an island and you're taking these ferries. It's kind of like you got to make a couple transfers. Do you store that somewhere on the ferry or do you just kind of keep that with you the whole time and juggle your luggage? I don't know why I'm thinking about
I
that,
feel like
but
I don't even have to touch my luggage once I leave the airport. The driver of the taxi, handles it for you. And then when you get to the ferry, they kind of pile it all up and then it all gets on the ferry. And then when I got off the ferry, we have another driver that we like to use in St. John. He drives one of the open air taxis and he can put it right on there or it comes to high tide with us
yeah,
for half hour.
love it. Love it.
Which
Just
is
park it at the high bar stool.
yeah.
Okay, awesome. That was super helpful. Thank you. So tell us what St. John is like when you first arrive and get off the ferry. Like, what are you seeing? What does it feel like?
It feels like it's kind of happening. I feel like I usually arrive, 5, 6 p.m. because it is a long travel day and we try to start as early in the day as possible. And you're excited to get that first cocktail. I'll tell you that, my favorite is the Painkiller. My whole family knows. And if they're there before me, they'll usually order it to be able to hand to us as we get off. And I guess it is a little bit of the family thing because the cousins are running to hug one another. But it's really a low key place. Like you don't have to get fancy. It is considered appropriate to be covered. So if you're not on the beach, it's respectful of the locals there to make sure you have a beach cover up. But it doesn't
Good to
have to
know.
be fancy. You could
Yeah.
be barefoot in a lot of the places.
But it's not like Miami where people are walking around in like string bikinis at the bars and stuff like that.
No, I feel like it feels very appropriate to have my children there. And it's not overcrowded in my opinion.
hmm
And so easy to like go up and get your drink or, order appetizers and take them down. There's a little beach right there where the ferry comes up, this bar that I'm describing, high tide. It's on the beach.
Nice.
So literally the kids are running around on the beach barefoot, having races, kind of wading into the water. And we're like going up to the bar to order drinks or appetizers. And there are picnic tables and, lounge chairs and that sort of thing. So it's very chill.
I love it. You're like literally immediately on vacation when you get off that ferry.
Yep.
Tell everyone what's in a Painkiller because they're like famous for that.
A Painkiller is a rum drink. So a spiced rum with like a pineapple, coconut, orangey flavor and nutmeg, fresh nutmeg on top.
So fun. I'm pretty sure I've never had one and now I just want to have one. But I feel like if I ordered one at like a bar in Nashville, they'd be like, what?
Yeah, it doesn't taste the same here as it does there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you've stayed at two different places, the Westin, which you've talked about, and we'll get more into that now, and one other place. So let's stick with the Westin for now and talk a little bit more about how the grounds are laid out and the amenities that you like about that place, and if people who don't have a timeshare can book it.
Yeah, the Westin is so beautiful and they're constantly putting effort in to keep the grounds up and to renovate, the villas and make them as current as possible. We've seen over time, it look maybe not as new. And then we know because my parents are paying the maintenance fees that they are refurbishing them and making them better and better. I've stayed in the newest ones and I've stayed in the older ones and I really like nice places and they meet my expectations. I think they're clean and I think they are, for the most part, pretty well laid out accommodations.
Nice.
The central part of the resort is the big main pool. It's large and it has like a kiddie pool on the side of it. And it's in between the main pool that I'm describing and the beach at the Westin is a restaurant, like an open air restaurant that you can get like lunch or an early dinner. And that's big enough to accommodate the number of people who are there in January, which is considered high season. It's never really felt overcrowded, but not so big. It's not like a big resort where you might get lost. You're not going to get lost at the Westin. They have amenities like a gym and they have water activities, like non-motorized water activities, like paddle boarding and kayaking, things like that to do right there on the beach. They have beach like cornhole and games like that right there. They have a gym. They have a little shop that is like a little boutique that, believe it or not, has cute stuff. And we always take a little stop in there. They have a little store where you could get coffee or deli sandwiches. And it also happens to be located next to one of the town grocery stores. Like you can walk from the Westin to this little town grocery store to pick up like bigger things if you want to cook and that sort of thing.
That's so convenient. So you can take a little stroll over there, grab some stuff for like breakfast or snacks, or if you want to cook a
Yeah.
dinner.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's like a small little islandy grocery store, like not what we're
Yes.
used to. Yeah.
Yes.
But you
Yes.
can still find the basics.
And you're only about a 5-minute drive from town at the Westin.
And when you say town, what do you mean?
Yeah. So Cruz Bay is like the small town where you would find restaurants and the bars, which I guess all the bars there really are also restaurants, and shopping. You could pick up some of the boat trips leave out of Cruz Bay. Like I said, the ferry comes into Cruz Bay, but it's not huge. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's like maybe a mile
Mm-hmm.
altogether.
And how would you guys like get there from the Westin to Cruz Bay? Do you guys get a taxi? Do you drive? Like, how do you get there?
Are you in the travel industry and want to stay ahead of the competition? Then add Travel Trends with Dan Christian to your podcast playlist. Dan Christian is a highly respected travel industry executive and entrepreneur. He covers the latest trends, insights, and innovations that are shaping the future of travel. Travel Trends with Dan Christian is a must-listen to essential resource for anyone in the travel industry. Available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and TravelTrendsPodcast.com. Transform your travel business with Travel Trends with Dan Christian. Tune in right now.
Yeah, so there are a couple of different transportation options in St. John, and we have used both. This past trip, we decided we didn't really want to be bothered with driving because on some cases you're drinking, and the roads, the driving in St. John, there are some pretty steep hills and curves, and you're driving on the left side of the road, and it can be nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
So sometimes if you want to avoid that altogether, you can. And there are open air taxis, and you can either have the Westin call them for you or get the number of a driver and kind of try to make them your own driver. So we love that. And then you can also rent cars, which I recommend booking way in advance. But there is a car rental right adjacent or even on the property of the Westin.
I know because it was in my book.
Oh, okay. O'Connor's. Yes. Yes. See, like you've been there.
Awesome.
So that's helpful. But there are some places that aren't as easy to get to or are very expensive to get to if you use the taxis.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to be able to count on the taxi picking you up at the end of the day.
Yes.
That could be tricky too.
Well, and because it is kind of like I don't know if mountainous is the right word, but like the topography can be a little rugged, right?
Big time,
Okay.
which is exciting when you're in the car, but maybe not if you're the driver. Or
Yes.
some people like to be in control, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. And then what about the other place you stayed the other time when you weren't at the Westin?
Well, we did that because we wanted to stay longer. That year we stayed for almost 2 weeks. And
That's amazing. How old were your kids?
This was not this trip, but the previous trip. So,
was it more over Christmas break, or did you like take them out of school for a week?
So like every year it kind of falls a little bit differently depending on when winter break falls. They did miss some school. I'm usually not opposed to them missing a little bit of school, but we try to avoid as much as possible.
Yes.
And that time we stayed at Grand Bay. So we actually stayed at Grand Bay and then moved over to the Westin when our villa became available. Grand Bay was great because you can walk right into town. You're like there.
Nice.
You're like right up the hill from the nucleus of Cruz Bay. So I loved it for that aspect. also great view, like looking out onto the water. They had a pool. It was smaller. I thought that accommodation was nice and convenient, and I prefer the Westin.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. And then I'm assuming there's a good amount of like Airbnbs and VRBOs if you play around that are probably available as well, probably even through the Westin if you wanted to rent that way.
Yes, I think you could go through VRBO or rent from an owner at the Westin if you wanted to stay at the Westin. There are also Airbnbs and VRBO homes throughout St. John. And I think if you wanted to drive your own vehicle and rent your own vehicle, that would be a good option for you. It probably wouldn't be a great option if you wanted to use the taxis. I just think that would be harder to call one to come to you.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Okay, let's talk about some of your favorite things to do while you're visiting St. John, and we'll start with beaches. So, yeah, are they all public beaches? Tell us about the beaches.
Yeah. So most of the beaches are public. One of the beaches, Trunk Bay, that I think is most well known for St. John and is in a lot of the magazines. We've had photos taken there. It's beautiful. That one does have a cost. I think something like $10 a person.
Okay.
But all the other beaches, to my knowledge, were free. Parking can be tricky. Get there early or do the taxi thing like we did. My favorite beaches are Cinnamon Bay. We love Cinnamon Bay. We just think it's beautiful. And it has really nice, like, this is going to sound funny, but like bushes for like if it rains or you need shade, that if you kind of like sit back, they're the big tropical leaves where they kind of provide good coverage.
Yeah.
And we love that. I just have memories now of thinking of us like hanging towels or whatever, like over top of the branches to like dry them or to keep us dry. And Cinnamon Bay also has some facilities like bathrooms and showers. So we like that beach. They don't have any food or anything, although that might be changing. I think the last time we were there, they might have had some food options available, but don't quote me on that one.
Okay.
What we like to do is stop in town and at this place called North Shore Deli. They have awesome sandwiches, and we'll get those, and then we'll pack up for the day and hang at Cinnamon Bay. And then my other favorite beach is a little bit further around the island towards like go around the east side, and it would be close to the north. It's called Maho. Love, love, love Maho. It's one of my favorite days always. The water there is always very calm. So I like to get in my float and just relax. And for the kids, they have excellent snorkeling because the waters are so calm. And people say that you're likely to see a turtle there. We've seen them here and there, not every time, but the water's super clear and calm. And they have paddleboard rentals there as well. They have food trucks set up. The beach is on one side of the road, and they have picnic tables, and you set up your chairs and then the water. But then on the other side of the road, like directly across the street, they have food trucks and they have drinks available at different little huts, and they have a little shopping, and then you can rent chairs, and it's just everything's really available. So you could come kind of empty-handed and have everything you need, or you could pack up and be really prepared for the day.
That sounds lovely. How far is that from the Westin, like driving wise?
25 minutes. I mean, these drives are so cool that you don't mind it because you're in the open air taxi, you're looking out, the roads are very exciting, the views are incredible. You can ask your driver to like pull over, and you can get out and take a picture, and you're up so high looking out over the crystal blue water. It's breathtaking. So I don't mind the time it takes to get there. I will say the further away the beach is, the more you're going to pay to get there.
And then you said you like to sit in your float. Do you like haul your own float with you?
We do.
What kind of float do you bring with you?
We pack those big circle ones that you can like blow up and deflate and blow up and deflate.
I love it.
And we like to put the kids in charge of holding those. They're light. Look, we'll carry all the bags and you'll carry the floats.
Yeah. And then are you like, Jordan, blow this up?
Yeah, I mean, we just take turns, make it happen. He doesn't care to sit in the float, so sometimes that's on me.
Yeah. And then the snorkeling, that sounds so fun, like almost like a little adventure to see if you can find something. Do you guys
Yeah,
bring your own snorkel gear or do you rent that
we
once
do.
you get there? Okay.
We do. We don't mess around with flippers, but just the masks and the air thing.
That sounds like such a perfect day. Like you can just be at the beach all day, but then take some breaks and go get some food. Or I love your idea of grabbing sandwiches. Like it all sounds amazing.
It's a little bit of work when you're packing up for a beach day, and it's worth it. Like
Yeah.
on those beaches, it is worth it.
Yeah. How about some of the excursions you've taken? Like getting out on the water or any of that kind of stuff?
It's my other favorite. We always say the boat day is the best day. That's typically been a gift from my parents for Christmas, which I think is I love an experience gift. And we
Yes.
love that.
Amazing.
When the kids were younger, it was really convenient to hop on the catamaran excursion right there at the Westin. We did the one that just stayed within the US Virgin Islands. So you're going around to different snorkel spots. And then also there's like a lunch involved where it's called the Pizza Pie Boat. So this is a restaurant where they serve pizza in somewhere in the Caribbean Ocean, has a little boat, and they're cooking the pizza on the boat. So you get on your catamaran boat and the captain or the first mates are like, we put in your order for pizza, and then you're snorkeling around, then you go pick up your pizza and enjoy it on the boat. And it's just
so
a fun
cool
novelty for the kids that we went and picked
Yes.
up pizza on the water from a different boat.
I absolutely love it. And like, what a dream if you were like such an adventurer to be like, I'm going to go work on the pizza pie and make
Yeah.
pizza in the Caribbean.
A year or so ago, it went up for sale, the Pizza Pie boat. And my family and I were just sending messages back and forth about like who was going to buy it and take over
Yes.
the business. And
You're
live
like,
on
kids,
it.
we're moving to St. John.
I know. And then this time we did a different boat trip where we chartered our own. Actually, we had a large enough group that we had to charter 2 boats, and they were in the same company and they went out in tandem. They called it like side by side or one in front of the other. And we decided to go to the British Virgin Islands. So this meant that we had to get all the passports and we had to make sure we knew how much it was going to be to go through customs. We weren't 100% sure that it was going to be a good day for the kids because the boat trip was going to be longer and sitting at customs before we could really do anything. And it turned out to be amazing. The crew on the boats was excellent in taking care of us in terms of what did we want to do. We got to really customize it to our kids and what they needed. This company was called Sunshine Daydream Boat Charters, and they kept the pace really quick. Like as before the kids could get bored, we were on to the next thing. So we went to Soggy Dollar Bar, Joost Van Dyke. We did the Willie T's thing on Norman Island where they jump off the boat. That was really cool. We could bring our own drinks on the boat. They didn't have lunch provided to us, but we got lunch at Soggy Dollar Bar. So one of the stops along the way had a restaurant we could order food, and we did that. It was 8 in the morning till 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and no one was ever bored. And beautiful views, and jumping off the boat, and just getting silly and
Sounds incredible. Yeah, that sounds incredible. I have a question about this US to British Virgin Island thing because I can't picture it because I haven't had to do this before. But like, if you were to just be in a boat and take your boat from St. John to Joost Van Dyke, is someone stopping you, or are you just like, it feels like the ocean's so big that it's so how does it all work? Is there like someone watching that line, and are the boats all getting in a line? How does that work?
It's a good question and the kids ask the same question. Like, do we really have to stop at customs?
I'm like a child.
Is this really necessary? I think the crew of the boat, there's like a certain level of respect that people who live and work on this island have for other people who live and work on the island.
Okay.
And that level of respect, I think, is what keeps, they don't know if they're going to get caught, but they don't take a chance with it.
Got it.
That's how I interpreted it, is that they respected the system and the other people that worked on the island.
Because can the locals, do you think if you were a local and you owned a boat, could you just kind of tool around, or would you have to do that every time? You're like, I don't live there, Kelsey. I don't know the answer to that question.
I do think we may have asked them that question, and I think they have an easier system, but there's still a check-in involved.
Okay. And do you have to get off the boat to check in?
We did not have to go into the office ourselves when we were headed into the British Virgin Islands. Our crew from the boat went in and took care of that for us. We had a lot of like sending passport pictures, filling stuff out before we ever got on the boat, but it didn't consume much of our boat time headed in. They kind of dropped us off. We got to like walk around. I think this is when we were on Yost Van Dyke. We went down to Foxy's and kind of got to hang out there and enjoy ourselves while they took care of the business.
Okay.
And then on the way back at the end of the day, we did have to get off and, make sure we didn't have our hats on and make sure our bathing suits were covered and put our shoes on and go into customs and nod our heads and, be polite. And we were fortunate that the timing worked out that there was not a line of boats. So
okay,
our day with customs was pretty smooth.
Nice. And on this day, is this when you also went to the baths?
We have done that in the past. I haven't done that since I've had children.
Okay.
I would really like to take them there at some point, but it is a longer boat ride to get there. So it would eat up more of our time. And we had kind of had a long checklist of spots that we wanted to hit up this time. But the baths is absolutely magical. These huge rocks, caves, and you're kind of sort of navigating your way through there, ducking, but you come out onto probably the clearest water I have ever seen.
And is that on the British side or the US side?
That's on the British side.
Okay, got it. And I know we've talked about this on previous podcasts, but explain the Soggy Dollar bar if people are listening for the first time, because that is so iconic and it's like on my list to visit.
Yeah. So the boat pulls up and at the beach. So you do have to kind of swim on, right? You kind of get in the water, you hold up whatever you hold your phone up really high so it doesn't get wet, so you can take your pictures when you get there. And then you walk up and try to go early in the day so it's not so crowded. And you're just talking like palm trees, chairs, sugary sand, and then the original home of the Painkiller. And it comes in its, white cup with the recipe written on it, and everyone goes home with that. So
that's cute.
And they have other drinks too. And they have this really cool thing I'm just remembering where you can buy a drink. If you know someone's like coming on a trip there in the future, it's literally a poster board with people, like you just put the person's name and however many drinks or something you're buying for them, and you can pay their drinks ahead of time. Then when they come, they find their name on this list and get their drink.
That's amazing.
It's very old school that it's like a written out list, and it's this, everybody believes it, and it's
they're like, look, my name's right there. That's
and your
cool.
friend bought you a drink. So
and then it's like bar and grill too, so you can grab some food there. And
and shopping. And we just really do like to have our souvenirs that say the name of our favorite place on earth. We bought like a bar mat this past time, and the kids all got matching t-shirts and stuff like that. So
yeah, cute. Sounds amazing. Okay, so let's talk about some of your favorite like food and shopping in the Cruz Bay area, kind of that main town. So what are some of your favorite spots when you're going into town?
So High Tide, the bar that we talked about along the beach, and there are some other spots along the beach there like Beach Bar. That's actually the name of it. Those are really fun and laid back, and you don't need reservations. You just kind of try to get there or on the early side. We like to go to the beach and then go right from the beach to this area. And then there are also nicer restaurants. One that everyone really likes is Morgan's Mango, or that's good for a date night. Like if you're there with a group and you and your husband can sneak out, that's the lobster spot.
Ooh, yum.
Um, Longboard is another kind of medium nice restaurant that's really good seafood. You cannot make reservations at that one. So again, getting there early. And that one's hard with a big group, so we don't always get to do it. The Banana Deck we like. Las Tapas is a really popular one there. Hopefully I'm naming that one
Yeah,
correct.
Las Tapas is correct because that's where a lot of my characters in the book work.
You got it. You got it. And that location of Las Tapas has moved over near the beach now, and
Okay.
it's nicer, and people really enjoy that.
Nice.
And
And
then,
are kids welcome at all these beach bars if you're in and out and grabbing
yeah,
a drink? Yeah. Okay, great.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah, no
bring 'em.
rules. Island life.
Bring them. Island life. Yeah. The only rule is like make sure you're covered.
Yeah.
And then one more place that's kind of iconic there is Woody's. And that one is not right on the beach, but it's more along the main street, like literally right on the street. And what's so cool about it, and I used to think this was really neat when I was younger, is because I had never seen it before until we went to St. John, but there's like a window. You know how like an ice cream spot is, you can like walk up to the window and order ice cream? That, but for drinks.
Oh, nice. Love it.
Yeah. So like really, really fun. You can't actually stop your car and get out and get a drink. And
Drive through
your car.
drinks.
It almost feels like if there wasn't traffic, you could do that.
Yeah.
But really casual, quick food. Kenny Chesney has been known to kind of stop into Woody's. That would be the spot if you were going to run into him that you might.
How fun.
We go to Woody's every time we're there.
Okay, nice. What do you like to eat there?
Shark bites.
What? Is it actually shark?
I think so. And it's got spices on it and it's delicious.
What?
My kids eat them. Yeah.
Wait, I have to look it up if it's really shark. Are you allowed to eat shark?
I mean, I think so.
Hold on. Is Woody's St.
Woody's Shark Bites.
John Shark Bites real shark?
People
Bite-sized mahi-mahi sprinkled with just enough Cajun seasoning to give them a bite.
They're delicious. That's all I know.
Like, shark or not, they're delicious.
They're
Okay.
so good. Got to get the Shark Bites.
Love it. What about shopping?
Down a little bit from some of the food spots I was describing, there's like a big stone outdoor mall kind of thing. And it's like 3 stories, and there are all sorts of shops in there, cute little boutiques. We always like to get a Christmas ornament while we're there. There's a famous St. John bracelet, a hook bracelet that I always wear. And
Wait, let me see. Oh, okay. It's like
it's
a pretty silver bracelet with a hook that attaches to the other side of it. Cute.
Yes.
I was thinking like shark tooth hook. So that's like really classy from what I was picturing.
Yeah, yes. So the St. John hook bracelet, it's kind of like that Irish ring where if you wear it one way, it means you're taken. And if you wear it the other way,
cute.
you are available. So
it.
that's fun to shop for there. And then there's another jewelry store there that I like called Bamboo Studio. So it's really fun to go in there. I don't know if you like to do this, but I think when you buy jewelry on vacation, it just adds more meaning to it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm a big, what jewelry can I get on this trip kind of gal.
Yeah.
And then the kids love shopping for just, T-shirts and stuff like that. And then there's an ice cream stop there in Mongoose Junction. I cannot remember what it's called, maybe Scoops. And their ice cream's great. And it's just, what's in it for them. The kids love. We want the cocktails. They want the ice cream.
Yes. Okay. I know we've talked about a lot of stuff that you guys have liked to do, but if you had to describe a typical day for your family on St. John, what does it look like from like sun up to sundown?
Easy peasy. Just take our time, have our coffee out on the balcony, send the kids to grab us some beach chairs. And then we kind of go back and forth between the pool and the beach. And now that our kids are older, kind of check on them. Sometimes there are contests at the pool, like they'll throw in beers and sodas and the kids will swim after them, or they had a sandcastle contest last time we were there. We like to pack a lot of food when we travel to St. John. So oftentimes we'll go back to the villa and eat lunch, or we can order food at the pool. And then We make dinner a lot because we have so many kids. And there are grills throughout, so we could grill steaks or something like that. And then we really like to end the day with watching the sunset on the beach. So the sunset at the Westin on the beach is really beautiful. And we like to do a champagne sunset. So we're filling up all the glasses and then taking pictures where we have our silhouettes in the sunlight. And then we all run off the beach as fast as we can before the sun goes all the way down, because once the sun goes down in St. John, you do have to watch out for the no-see-ums, which are those little, you can't see them, mosquito kind of bugs that are nasty.
Yeah. Are those there all the time? Like,
I don't know, because we're
Okay.
almost always there in January,
Okay.
but sometimes worse than others. It's not a problem at all during the day, but when the sun goes down, you want to get off the beach.
Yeah. I love this move of sending your kids down to get the beach chairs. I haven't done that yet, but I'm starting to be like, ooh, that's a good way to occupy them in the morning when they've got all this energy and you just want to have a little coffee, and then they have like a mission, and then you guys can enjoy the fact that they got chairs for the rest of the day.
I know. It's awesome. And maybe get some at the pool and the beach, you know?
Yeah.
Treat
And I'm
yourself.
assuming the Westin has towels that you can use.
They do.
Okay. I loved to hear that they have entertainment as well, like things here and there that are going on to kind of entertain who's ever around the pool or the beach or whatever. That's nice. When you said you pack food, do you mean like from the US?
100%.
Okay. What are you packing and in what kind of suitcase?
Yeah. I filled almost an entire suitcase with food this time. And we're bringing mostly like the stuff for the kids. So mac and cheese and granola bars and things like that will meet their needs and not cost us an arm and a leg, because we might not be able to find the exact brand that they like when we go to the little store in town. I mean, there is a little bit bigger market. There's the Dolphin Market, and then there's, I can't think of the name of it, the one right by the Westin. But still, you may not be able to find exactly what you want, and you're going to pay a lot less for it.
Yeah, that's a good point. You might not be able to find it, and it's going to be so expensive that those like shelf stable things just kind of throw a bunch in, and then you're good to go once you get there.
Totally. And then like coffee, we'll often bring like coffee so that we have the kind of coffee that we like. And then I haven't done this myself, but my parents are really forward thinking, and they have purchased steaks even and frozen them, and then packed a cooler full of frozen meat so that they can transport that down and it's still good when they arrive. And then we can have a nice steak dinner, and we know the quality is where we want it to be.
That is so forward thinking. And I'm a very forward thinker, and I've never packed meat.
I know. It feels like the restaurants in St. John have the very best food, and then you can't find it at the grocery store, and it doesn't always make sense. Like the produce at the grocery store just doesn't seem to be up to the quality you would expect. But then if you order it out, it's fabulous.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of makes sense, because they have to bring so much into the island. I'm sure it's expensive. And then if you're going to get the like fancy grade apples that we're all used to here, to get those and then get them over there in that same condition probably just isn't cost effective. Wait, I need to go back to this meat thing. Do you have any insight into literally how they're doing this? Like the process? Like, are they ice packs or frozen gel packs? Like how, and do they check it or do they carry it on? I have so many questions.
Okay. They check it. They check the meat. Everything is frozen. We even freeze like blocks of cheese. You can freeze yogurt. You can freeze cream cheese.
So then it gives you like a good chunk of hours, plus you've got ice in there for it to go before it's actually getting to room temperature. Yeah.
And then we usually pack it in a flexible cooler. So at the end of the trip, you can just pack it in your suitcase.
Yeah, fold it like a soft-sided cooler.
And that's really useful for going to the beach too. You know, you want to have a cooler to carry along on your beach days as well. So we've really found ways to make it work so that we can vacation multiple times a year and still be at these high-cost dream paradise places like St. John.
Yes, my mind has been blown. Actually, I had a friend when I lived in New England who her husband would go down yearly to this guy's trip in like Florida or something. And we had such great lobster up in New England that he would always bring it down in a similar way. And she was trying to explain it to me like it would be frozen and he'd put it on these gel ice packs or something. So it was like a similar thing. I've just never like broached that, but I'm interested. Also, I haven't traveled a ton to these like tiny islands where if you're there for over a week with family and you want to feed a bunch of people
Yeah.
and it's hard to find steaks at the grocery store, like it's super smart. I love
Yeah.
that. Such
My
a little
family's
travel hack.
really big. I mean, we were traveling there with my two sisters, their families, which my one sister has 4 daughters. My other sister has 2 daughters and a son. And then there was another family that was friends of my sister who was there. So for us to all go out to eat together to a nice place
Yeah,
was not super feasible. So
right. It's hard just numbers wise and then
yeah,
super expensive. You guys clearly plan ahead when you go to St. John. I love it. Or do you have any other tips for listeners?
I do. I would try to book flights out at least 6 months in advance and watch them. For my family of 4, if we can get flights around 3,500, right around there, currently we think that that's a deal. Like that, then we're going. And my dad never thinks that that we're actually coming on the trip until we've bought the flights. So he's always holding out to know, oh, I'll believe you're coming, when I know the flights are booked.
Yes.
And then the other thing to think about is renting cars. You want to make sure that if you want to rent a car, you do that far in advance, like a couple of months in advance, and then restaurant reservations. So if you do want to go to a nice restaurant, especially in the high season, like in January, or we've been there over New Year's before, it's really important to book your restaurant reservations ahead of time.
What are your favorite restaurants that require reservations that you'd say, okay, I would book one here and here?
I would probably say Morgan's Mango if I could get out without my children. They don't have a lot on the menu for the kids.
Is it like seafood?
Yeah.
So I kind of love it. Your family, your parents have this timeshare the first week of January every year. And your job is basically like, okay, if we can get the flights, we can get there. And they're just like hoping that you guys are coming every year.
Not every year. We're
Okay.
not so lucky to be able to go every year. Sometimes they will trade it around or rent out their week and use their options differently. They're
Right.
retired now and they're liking to do a lot of different traveling. So it's not every year, but we really want to try to make it work. When they say who's going to St. John this year, it's really hard not to raise your hand.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love it.
And they also have to make it possible for everyone to fit.
Hmm.
So our family has expanded large enough now that we can all fit in that 3-bedroom villa. And so it takes a little coordination and finesse to line it all up the right way. But they've been able to do it a few times and we've really enjoyed it.
Love it. Okay, Christy, I end every podcast with, if someone listening is considering this trip, what is it about St. John that would make you say, just book it?
The water. There's nothing more beautiful and addicting than that crystal clear water at the perfect temperature. I just feel like I'm Moana and the water calls me. I
Yes.
can't wait to go back to it every time I have the opportunity. That and just the chill vibe, just the being on island time and your hardest decisions being, which beach are we going to and that kind of thing.
I love it. It's just you and your float out in the bay.
No, just me and my painkiller
Yeah.
floating around at Maho.
I can
not a care
picture
in the
it.
world.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here, Christy. This was amazing. And I'm sure a lot of listeners now are going to start researching, trying to get to St. John.
Yeah, they should get there.
That wraps up another episode of Trip Tales. If you have a trip you'd like to share about on the podcast, email me at triptalespodcast@gmail.com and I'll add you to the schedule. Also, be sure to follow the show so that you don't miss any upcoming vacation destinations. And if you have an extra minute in your day, please leave a review for the podcast. It helps more than you could imagine. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next episode of Trip Tales.